Welcome back. This is Dan Mink, the Rhinestone Roper. Today we're going to be disassembling the Winchester Model 94. Now, why would you want to disassemble it? Well, you might disassemble it for adjustments, or repairs, or for cleaning. Now, if you shoot black powder like I do in my show, black powder balloon busting blanks, these take a lot of cleaning. But when you're shooting blanks, the shell does not expand and force all the gases out the end of the barrel. It doesn't expand. Those gases go through all of your gun, all that black powder crud gets in there, and it gets in the magazine tube. It will totally corrode that magazine tube, and it will destroy the spring that's inside. So that's the first thing we'll do, is take that spring out. And here we go. But I did have a gunsmith tell me early on that the Winchester Model 94 was one of the most complicated guns to disassemble. Now we're taking the spring out of the magazine to start with. I've got a screw right here. This end cap will come off, so I want to grab onto that end cap so it doesn't spring out when I take the screw out. First time you do this, the spring comes blasting out of there. You end up looking all over for your screw and your end cap. So inside the magazine, we got the end cap, we got the spring, and there's a plug in there. There we go. When you're using black powder, both these things need to be cleaned, and the inside of the magazine tube does also. Next, we'll take our ring off, our saddle ring. There we go. Now, as you're taking these apart, you need probably a couple different sizes screwdrivers and a punch. When you look at the screws in the body of your gun, you want your blade of your screw to fill most of that slot. But if it sticks out over the edge of the slot, then you'll scrape the bluing off of the body of your gun. You don't want that. All right, first thing we'll do is take the stock off with our big screwdriver. One screw right there on the back of the gun. Now you can try to lay all your stuff in order, or you can lay the screws beside the part that it goes to. But really, every one of these screws has a different shape to it. Either the screw is longer or it's thicker, but the best way to tell what screw goes where is by the head of the screw. You know, some screws are pretty flat, and some of these heads have a longer shank on the head itself. It's pretty easy to tell what screw goes where if you get them mixed up. Next, we'll take this screw off. Screw that goes to our link here. That aside. Next, take this screw out. This screw goes all the way through that link and holds it firm, but this screw up here, its only purpose is to hold in a shear pin, holds a pin. So you can see that little pin in that hole, so we'll turn this gun over. I'm going to take my punch, put it in that little hole right there, and punch it out. I'll take this screw out. It's almost too wide for that one. That's the screw that goes in our lifter. There it goes. Got our lifter there, our link, and our level. This is lever. This is a big loop lever for spinning this rifle to cock it. One more important screw. I'll take out our hammer and trigger. And our locking bolt. And last but not least is our breech bolt. We can take out our loading gate with this screw here, but that's usually not necessary. And there's a couple more springs we can take out with these little tiny screws, but that's usually not necessary either. There's a couple parts to our breech bolt. One is the firing pin. And here is the ejector. But that's, you can get access to that whole thing to clean it, so we don't need to take that off. But we've also got the extractor. It's a little hook that goes and grabs the back end of your shell. So when you cock that and pull this bolt back, that grabs that shell, and then this pops it up so it ejects it. Now sometimes black powder will build up underneath that extractor, so that needs to come off too, and that's not hard. There's two little tiny bolts, two little tiny screws right there. So you remove those two screws. This it's a long shaft with a hook on the end that comes out, and you can clean both sides of that and get the powder off of it. All right, that's disassembly of the Winchester. To put it back together, now I would clean all these and spray them all with gun oil. Put our firing pin back in our breech bolt. And there's two things about how that goes in. You need to line up these notches right there where they're supposed to go. But the best way to tell if you got it in right is there's an angle right there. And the angle on the back of this firing pin, the angle on the back of the firing pin needs to match the angle on the breech bolt. If you got it in there correctly, it's a smooth surface right there. Once you get it in, it won't wobble around and change. But the reason it has to go in that way is because the end of the lever here goes in that slot. It goes in that slot right there and fits in that notch. It's got that in correctly. We'll slide her right in. Excellent. Next, we'll take our locking bolt. The link here grabs the end of that locking bolt. So this side goes in first. And these wings go to the back of the gun. So once you get in there, it looks like that. Okay, next we'll put our hammer and trigger in. We'll put it in place, and you look down that hole there and you see you got it in the right spot. And as you can see, the head of the screw is fairly deep that goes in that one. So we'll look for a screw with a fat head on it. There's one. And there's one. Those two screws look interchangeable. We'll see if they are. One thing about these guns, if you have to force something or something screws really hard, it means you got it in the wrong spot. Okay, for some reason those screws were not interchangeable. That one didn't really want to go in. I don't know if it's because it's rusted a little bit. But this screw obviously is the one that's used to being in there. Won't tighten it up too much yet. Okay. So we got our trigger and hammer on. We'll push our locking bolt in all the way so that our breech bolt is forward. That way we can look through that hole and see that everything is lined up. We need to install our lifter. And the threads for the lifter screw are up next to the head and not at the far side, and you can see that's the case right there. Plus the lifter screw, the depth of the head is very shallow. Got a shallow hole there. Okay. Now we've got our lever. So at the end of the lever in the slot in the lifter. And we'll need the end of our lever kind of angled towards the end of the gun. We'll slide the back of the link onto the locking bolt. Then work everything back so that the forward end of our link will go inside the gun frame. Okay, we jiggled that. We didn't force anything. But now we can see that the holes line up for our link right there. Now we're concerned with whether the breech bolt is all the way forward, and we can see that hole that was in the end of our lever shaft lines up. To do that, we need the breech bolt all the way forward, and we push our locking bolt up to hold it there. There we go. We closed our lever, worked it all together. The locking bolt is up here holding the breech bolt forward. Now I'm going to look down that hole there and jiggle my lever until all the holes line up. I see all the holes are lined up right there. I'll get my pin, the tapered end of the pin goes first. I'll hold my finger on that while I jiggle stuff a little bit so it goes all the way in. And it's gone all the way in. We'll put that screw in there to hold it in. Make sure we're threaded properly. None of these screws get tight until the very end. That one's good. Now our holes are lined up here. The head of this hole, the head of this screw that goes in this hole has a pretty thick head on it, and you can see that thick wall that thick wall right there. That screw has a thick, that screw head has a thick wall on it, so it must be the one that goes there. Okay. Everything's free and moving. Put the stock on now, see if we've got it together properly. Okay, if we're together properly, this gun should cock without any problem. And it does. All right. Put our saddle ring back on. The saddle ring doesn't really have to come off for cleaning, but I took it off just to get it out of the way. Okay. And we've only got a few pieces left. Plug in first. Work our spring in there. Spinning that cap around to see where the threads are. This side of the hole I can see threads. This side does not have threads. And there's no threads up here near the head of the screw, so put it in the side of the cap with no threads. Let's see if that works. That is how to disassemble and some cleaning tips on your Winchester 94 repeating rifle. As you can see, this one has a big loop on the lever for spin cocking it. In subsequent videos, we'll talk about how to spin cock these Winchesters and also how to modify your lever so you can fan the thing. Anyway, press like and share and subscribe. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next time.